718 Cayman values just dropped to a 1-year low. Hence, if you bought a Cayman last year, there's a good chance that it's now worth less than what you paid for it. This phenomenon is of course not unique. We saw in my Q2 exotic car market update that price trends are flattening and in some cases even decreasing. Yet, the situation in the 718 Cayman market is slightly worse than in the 981 market and also than in other car markets. Prices are not just flattening or decreasing. No, the year-on-year price change just turned negative for almost all segments. But before we dive into the details, let's first have a look at today's market and the models that are covered in this video. Over here we have the US market of August. You can see that the 981 and 718s are included and that the 987 generation is excluded. I will cover them in a separate video, and the same goes for the GT4s, they also deserve an own video. But now then, let's cover some statistics and familiarize ourselves with the market. In total there are 334 cars for sale and these cars have a median price of $70,000. Now unlike many other models, you can see that you can get almost every model type for that price. The price difference between the 981 on the left and the newer 718 on the right are very small. 718 base and S models will cost you around 25% more than a 981 equivalent, while a GTS will only cost you 13% more. The depreciation curve on the 718 was quite steep, and I'm sure that many of you are aware that this might have something to do with the engine. It comes with a 4-cylinder instead of that sweet sounding 6-cylinder in the 981. But before you all start raging in the comment section that I don't know what I'm talking about because I don't own a 718 Cayman, please note that I'm not presenting my own opinion here. Automotive journalists almost unanimously marked down the 4-cylinder as the only negative point, and this seems to be reflected in the market values. Porsche saw an opportunity here and reintroduced the 6-cylinder in the form of the 4-liter GTS. And as you can see, this is what the market wanted. Prices are still strong and the gap to the S models is much larger than the MSRP gap. Yet, as we will see soon, even 4-liter GTS values are down. In fact, the only thing that's up is the thumb on the like button down below. So if you enjoyed this video, please support the channel by clicking on that like button. Thank you. And with that, it's time to have a look at the price trends. You see, after last year's boom, the exotic car market is cooling down. But if you would like to know more about that, then I recommend that you check out my Q2 market update by clicking right over here. In short, we are seeing that price trends are flattening and also that prices are decreasing. Not yet crashing, but we saw last week that there are some 911 market segments which saw more severe price decreases of 6%. Also the 718 Cayman can't escape this market trend. All segments are down and most of them are actually lower than 1 year ago. And given last year's boom, this is remarkable to say the least. So let's have a look at the price trends. Over here we have the price trends for the base, S and GTS models. I excluded the 4-liter GTS due to the scaling. But don't worry, we will have a look at that price trend shortly. We can see over here that prices came down in all segments. Compared to May, base prices are down by 5.3%, S prices by 2.5% and GTS prices by 3.2%. The price drops in the base and the S market are even statistically confirmed, and this means that it is unlikely that they are the result of chance. It's always important to consider this. Price trends fluctuate and some of the fluctuations are only visible because you look at the market at a different day. In other words, they could be based on chance. Prices for the T model are by the way also down by 3.3%, but I excluded that trend to keep the graph nice and tidy. Now looking at the long-term developments, we can see that the trends are quite similar. Prices increased between May 2020 and the winter of 2021. That's when the trends flattened. This also means that the year-on-year price change is now slightly negative. Compared to last year, base models are down by 0.6%, S models by 0.5% and GTS models by 1%. These are of course not dramatic price changes, but I did not yet see them in other markets. We saw for example last week that the majority of the 911 prices decreased, but that they are still above last year's values. An obvious question to ask is whether or not this is related to the fact that the 718 has a 4-cylinder. We can check this in several ways. The first one is of course to have a look at the 4-liter GTS market. Looking at that market, the price decrease in the other models does not seem to be caused by the 4-cylinder engine. Also 4-liter GTS prices are down by 3.3% compared to May. Prices are still a lot higher than last year, but supply levels were very low over here, making the first two price observations a bit more troublesome. A second way to check if the price drops are related to the 4-cylinder engine is to have a look at the price trends in the 981 market. and we will do that shortly. I would first like to show you another interesting market dynamic. Over here we have the supply levels in the 718 market split by the model types, and this reveals that supply trends for the, let's say, normal models, so the base, S and GTS, are down. However, shortly after prices soared, supply levels shot up in all of those segments, only for them to come down when the price trends flattened. Now what I'm about to say is all very speculative, as it is not possible for me to see from the data why all these people put their cars up for sale, but I guess you know where this is going. Many owners simply might have been tempted to sell their car after prices came down quite rapidly prior to the price frenzy. It must have been a gift from heaven if you have seen your car's value plummet more than you expected, only to see values increase substantially after that. As we can see from the supply levels, the people who were triggered by the high prices probably sold their car as supply levels are back at their original trajectory. So what about the 981 values? Did prices decrease less than in the 718 market? Well, the short answer is yes. Let's run through the different models and compare them to the 718. Starting with the base model, we can see that used 981 prices remained flat during the last 3 months. Moreover, they have been flat during the whole year. Today's median price is only $10 more than 1 year ago. And this means that compared to February 2020, prices are up by 20%. And this contrasts to the 718. We already saw that prices decreased in that market. However, over the full period, the price change is pretty similar. Also 718 prices are up by 20%. And things look the same in the S market. 981 values were flat during the last 3 months and also during last year. Again, the median price point differs by only $12. Compared to February 2020, prices are up by 25%. Again, this is slightly different from the 718 market. Prices have been decreasing over there. Compared to May 2020, prices are up by only 18%. Now moving on to the GTS market, we can see that things look a tad different over there. 981 GTS values came down by 3.4% during the last month, and this is approximately the same as the drop in the 718 market. Yet, compared to last year, prices are still up by 2% while they are down by 1% in the 718 market. One unrelated fact, but cool nonetheless, is that 718S prices are now literally the same as 981 GTS prices. If we add all S and GTS models in one graph, then we can see this beautifully. We have from top to bottom the 718 GTS, 981 GTS, 718S and 981S. We can see that the green and the orange line, so the 718S and 981S, overlap almost perfectly. You could not make this up even if you wanted to. But which one do you get at this price point? A newer, lower mileage 718 or a higher mileage, slightly older 981? From a depreciation standpoint, the GTS is of course the better choice, but what do you prefer? Please let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Now so far we looked at many price trends and at many numbers, but what is now the big picture that we can deduce from all of this when it comes to 718 and 981 prices? Well, 718 prices topped and prices for all model types decreased during the last month, and this results in a year-on-year price change that is negative. The 981 market also followed this market trend, but is slightly stronger than the 718 market. The values are flat and the year-on-year price change is mostly positive. But is this difference in price development between the 718 and 981 generation caused by the 4-cylinder engine of the 718? Well, it might play a role, but the differences are not large enough to draw that conclusion with any certainty. It simply could be related to the fact that they are newer and tend to have a lower mileage. After the introduction of the 718 Cayman, it was evident that their depreciation curve was quite steep, or at least steeper than what was expected. And indeed, this most likely can be attributed to the 4-cylinder engine. In the current situation it's not so clear. 4-liter GTS prices also came down and we saw that the correlation between the 981 GTS and 718S market is very high. So there are some nuances when it comes to the prices. What is however the same is this remarkable development in the supply levels. Remember that we looked at these supply spikes in the 718 market when prices soared. Well, we can see the same in the 981 market. Over here we have the supply trends for the 718 and 981 base, S and GTS market. We already observed these supply spikes in the 718 market, but look at the 981. The red, brown and purple lines show similar developments. Supply levels peaked and came down, and this in turn might be helpful to soften the price decrease. As we saw during last week, price trends are turning down, and the big question right now is whether or not the downward trends will accelerate, or that we just witnessed a small correction after which prices will be flat. And with that we arrived at the end of this video. Now if you enjoyed this video but would like to see an analysis for a different car, let me know the name of that car by commenting it down below in the comment section. Once there are enough requests for a certain car, I will make a video about it. Also don't forget then to subscribe and to click on the notification bell so you get notified when your requested analysis goes live. As always, thank you for watching and I hope to see you next week for a new video.